In the bustling marketplaces of our world, a silent force governs the ebb and flow of goods and services. This force, often unnoticed, is what keeps the wheels of commerce turning smoothly. It ensures that products reach the right hands, that services are rendered where needed, and that the balance of supply and demand is maintained. This invisible hand, as Adam Smith famously termed it, is the principle of supply and demand. It is a fundamental concept that underpins how prices are determined and how resources are allocated in an economy. Imagine walking through a market, seeing the variety of goods on display and noticing how prices fluctuate based on availability and desire. This dynamic interaction is the essence of the invisible hand at work. Adam Smith, often regarded as the father of modern economics, introduced this concept in the 18th century. His insights have since become the bedrock of economic theory. The invisible hand guides not just individual transactions, but the entire economy, influencing everything from the price of bread to the wages of workers. It is a fundamental concept that underpins how prices are determined and how resources are allocated in an economy. Economists spend their careers studying these patterns, analyzing data, and making predictions based on the principles of supply and demand. These principles are not just abstract theories, they have real-world implications that affect our daily lives. Whether we are aware of it or not, the laws of supply and demand influence our daily decisions as consumers and producers alike. When we decide to buy a product, we are responding to its price, which is determined by the balance of supply and demand. Similarly, when businesses set prices or decide how much of a product to produce, they are guided by these same principles. This essay aims to demystify the seemingly complex relationship between supply and demand. By breaking down these concepts into understandable terms, we hope to shed light on how they operate in various contexts. From the classroom to the boardroom, understanding supply and demand is crucial for making informed decisions. We will delve into the core principles that drive these economic forces, using real-world examples to illuminate their practical implications. For instance, consider the tech industry, where the demand for the latest gadgets often outstrips supply, leading to higher prices and longer wait times. Or think about the agricultural sector, where weather conditions can drastically affect supply, impacting prices and availability. By understanding these fundamental concepts, we can gain a deeper appreciation for how markets function and how they shape our economic landscape. The invisible hand is not just a theoretical construct, it is a powerful force that influences every aspect of our economic lives. From the bustling streets of a city to the quiet corners of a rural market, the principles of supply and demand are at play. From the price of a cup of coffee to the availability of the latest smartphone, the laws of supply and demand are constantly at play. These principles determine what products are available, how much they cost, and how they are distributed. They affect our choices as consumers and the strategies of businesses trying to meet our needs. By understanding these principles, we can make more informed decisions about our own economic behavior. Whether we are budgeting our finances, making a purchase, or planning a business strategy, the invisible hand of the market is always at work, guiding our choices and shaping our economic reality. Join me as we embark on a journey to unravel the intricacies of this fascinating economic phenomenon. Together, we will explore the forces that drive our markets, understand the principles that govern our economic decisions, and appreciate the profound impact of the invisible hand on our daily lives. The law of demand is a fundamental principle in economics that describes the relationship between the price of a good or service and the quantity demanded by consumers. Essentially, it helps us understand how consumers react to changes in prices. It states that, all other factors being equal, as the price of a good or service increases, the quantity demanded will decrease. This is because higher prices may deter consumers from purchasing the product. Conversely, as the price decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. Lower prices make goods and services more accessible to a larger number of consumers. This inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded is a fundamental tenet of microeconomics. It helps economists predict consumer behavior and market trends. We can visualize this relationship using a demand curve, which is a graphical representation of the law of demand. The demand curve typically slopes downwards from left to right. The demand curve slopes downwards from left to right, indicating the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. This downward slope is a key feature of the demand curve. The law of demand reflects the rational behavior of consumers in the marketplace. Consumers aim to maximize their utility or satisfaction given their budget constraints. As the price of a good or service rises, consumers will naturally seek out substitutes or reduce their consumption of that good or service. This substitution effect is a critical aspect of the law of demand. This is because, at higher prices, consumers' purchasing power is reduced, and they must make choices about how to allocate their limited resources. They may prioritize essential goods over non-essential ones. Understanding the law of demand is crucial for businesses and policymakers. Businesses can set prices strategically to maximize revenue, while policymakers can use this knowledge to predict the impact of taxes and subsidies on consumption. In summary, the law of demand is a foundational concept in economics that explains how price changes influence consumer behavior. It underscores the importance of price in the decision-making process of consumers. Let's consider the example of smartphones to illustrate the law of demand in action. Suppose a new model of a popular smartphone is released at a price of $1,000. At this price point, there is a high demand for the phone, as consumers are eager to get their hands on the latest technology. However, as the price of the phone remains high, the quantity demanded will gradually decrease. Now imagine that the manufacturer decides to lower the price of the smartphone to $800. At this lower price point, the phone becomes more accessible to a wider range of consumers. As a result, the quantity demanded increases, as more people are willing and able to purchase the phone at the more affordable price. This example demonstrates the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, as dictated by the law of demand. As the price of the smartphone decreases, the quantity demanded increases, reflecting the rational behavior of consumers in response to changes in price. Section 4. Decoding the law of supply. The law of supply is another cornerstone of economics that describes the relationship between the price of a good or service and the quantity supplied by producers. It states that, all else being equal, as the price of a good or service increases, the quantity supplied will also increase. Conversely, as the price decreases, the quantity supplied will decrease. This direct relationship between price and quantity supplied is a fundamental principle that governs the behavior of producers in the market. The law of supply can be represented graphically using a supply curve, which slopes upwards from left to right, indicating the direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. The logic behind the law of supply is rooted in the profit-maximizing behavior of producers. As the price of a good or service rises, producers are incentivized to increase their output to capitalize on the higher potential profits. Conversely, as the price falls, producers may reduce their output or shift their resources to more profitable ventures. Section 5. Illustrating supply with a practical example. Let's take the example of coffee beans to illustrate the law of supply in a real-world context. Coffee is one of the most traded commodities globally, and its market dynamics provide a clear picture of how supply responds to price changes. Suppose that the price of coffee beans increases due to factors such as adverse weather conditions or increased demand from coffee-loving nations. When the price rises, it signals to coffee farmers that there is a higher potential for profit. As the price of coffee beans rises, coffee farmers are motivated to increase their production to capitalize on the higher potential profits. They might invest in better farming techniques, hire more labor, or expand their farming areas to produce more coffee beans. Conversely, imagine that the price of coffee beans plummets due to an oversupply in the market. This oversupply could be a result of a bumper harvest or reduced demand from major coffee-consuming countries. In this scenario, coffee farmers may be discouraged from producing as much coffee, as the lower price may not justify the costs of production. The reduced revenue might not cover the expenses of labor, fertilizers, and other inputs required for coffee farming. They may choose to reduce their output or shift their resources to other crops that offer higher potential returns. For instance, they might start growing crops like cocoa or spices, which could be more profitable under the given market conditions. This example highlights the direct relationship between price and quantity supplied, as dictated by the law of supply. When prices are high, the quantity supplied increases, and when prices are low, the quantity supplied decreases. As the price of coffee beans increases, coffee farmers are incentivized to increase their production, while a decrease in price leads to a reduction in output. This dynamic ensures that the market remains balanced over time, with supply adjusting to meet demand.